The events of July 13, 1862, included the Battle of Murfreesboro and General Don Carlos Buell and the Army of the Ohio making their way to Chattanooga. General Braxton Bragg was now planning on moving his army to Chattanooga before Buell reached the city. But Bragg still needed to distract Buell, and the race to Chattanooga was now beginning in earnest. General Edmund Kirby Smith would deviate from the plan and would stir up trouble in Kentucky. Would this distraction give enough time for the Confederate troops to reach Chattanooga? Come along with us as we see the events to happen before the Confederate Heartland Offensive begins. All aboard the Kentucky-Tennessee Living Time Machine. Please fasten your seatbelts and keep your arms and legs inside of the vehicle at all times. But to get going, we need your help. We still need to fire up that time machine to transport us. Please help us by clicking on the like, subscribe, and bell notification buttons down below. Not only does this fire up the time machine for our flight back in time, but it convinces the YouTube algorithm that we need a bigger vehicle to reach more people who love history as much as you do. Now, back to our story. The movement of troops. As we have stated before, General Braxton Bragg needed to shore up the defenses of the city of Chattanooga. Logistically, this would have been a huge undertaking, with the troops moving more than 200 miles by march and over 770 miles by train from Tupelo, Mississippi to Chattanooga, Tennessee. But the largest movement of troops toward the city could not be hidden, so distractions and small skirmishes had to take place. On July 19, 1862, Bragg ordered Colonel Joseph Wheeler to West Tennessee and General Frank C. Armstrong to northern Alabama. These two commanders were given the orders to conduct raids behind enemy lines to distract the Union Army from attacking Bragg's moving troops. On July 23, 1862, the orders were sent for the troops to begin their journey toward the city. The first Confederate troops would arrive in Chattanooga on July 29th. But there would be 32,000 men left behind at Tupelo under the command of General Sterling Price and General Earl Van Dorn. Their mission was to guard Vicksburg against General Grant. Smith takes his own actions. On July 31, 1862, General Braxton Bragg met with General Edmund Kirby Smith to lay out the plan for the invasion of Middle Tennessee and into Kentucky. If successful, the men would be joined by Van Dorn and Price to complete the takeover of Kentucky, which could threaten the Union hold on the state of Ohio. On August 5th, Bragg sent Patrick R. Claiborne and Preston Smith and their divisions to Knoxville, Tennessee, to meet up with General Edmund Kirby Smith. With these forces joining him, General Smith was now over 4 divisions and the commanders. The 1st Division under the command of Brigadier General Carter Stevenson. The 2nd Division under the command of Brigadier General Henry Heth. The 3rd Division under the command of General Thomas Churchill. The 4th Division was under the command of Brigadier General Patrick R. Claiborne. Smith also had command over a cavalry brigade under the command of Colonel John S. Scott. Altogether, Smith would have a force of 15,000 soldiers. Even though General Smith had laid out the plans with Bragg, he didn't exactly go by the playbook. On August 14, 1862, with General Patrick R. Claiborne and Colonel John S. Scott leading the advanced forces, General Smith left Knoxville, Tennessee. His men would march 150 miles northward towards Richmond, Kentucky. The plan included a direct battle against a Union garrison that was located at Cumberland Gap, but instead, Smith went around this area. However, he did send General Carter L. Stevenson with a contingent of 9,000 troops to engage the garrison if they threatened to move against the Confederate troops and to hold the Cumberland Gap. General Smith then moved toward Richmond with 6,000 infantrymen and 850 cavalry troopers. General Bragg was just 100 miles west of Smith when he left Tennessee, but was unable to join him in the march towards Richmond, Kentucky. Because of this, Bragg waited an additional 2 weeks with about 30,000 troops before he would start his march toward the city on August 28th. General Smith causes chaos in Kentucky. Smith believed that there were more men willing to join the Confederate cause, and he hoped to enlist those men before going into actual battle. Also, Smith received a report from John Hunt Morgan that the area was full of supplies that the Confederacy needed, and that the area was not heavily guarded and could easily be taken. So, with that belief in mind, Smith intended to march to Lexington, Kentucky, which was 30 miles northeast of Richmond. While in Kentucky, Smith issued the following statement, quote, "We came to strike off the chains which were riveted upon you. We call upon you to unite your arms and join with us in hurling back from our fair and sunny plains the northern hordes who would deprive us of our liberty, that they may enjoy our substance." Unquote. This encouraged those that supported the Confederacy to set up their own government in Russellville, Kentucky. On August 16th, Kentucky Governor Beriah Magoffin resigned his office and joined the bogus government. 2 days later, on August 18th, James F. Robinson, the Speaker of the Kentucky Senate, took the office that Magoffin held and became the Union governor. The invasion of Barbourville, Kentucky. While this is not considered to be an actual part of the Confederate Heartland Offensive battles, it is interesting that this piece of history is often overlooked. Barbourville was an important Kentucky community in the Civil War. It was in close proximity to Cumberland Gap. On September 19, 1861, Confederate General Felix Zollicofter's troops were able to take Barbourville in an attack of Camp Andy Johnson. So it would stand to reason that General Smith would think that this was a safe spot to land for a little while to plan his next action in the state of Kentucky. In Smith's report to General Samuel Cooper, Adjutant and Inspector General of the Confederate Armies, he states that he had invaded and occupied Barbourville, Kentucky on the 18th of August. Some sources state that he was in Barbourville for a week. Others claim 2 weeks. In either case, the area of Barbourville was not exactly friendly to the invading Confederate troops. Even though Smith's invasion did score Federal food and supplies, it simply was not enough to sustain the troops. With very little support, comfort, or much needed supplies, Smith decided to leave the hostile environment of the area as quickly as possible. Smith would write to Bragg on August 20th, 1862, the following about his choices in this campaign. Quote, "I find I have 2 courses left me, either to fall back for supplies to East Tennessee or to advance towards Lexington for them. The former course will be too disastrous to our cause in Kentucky for me to think of doing so for a moment. I have therefore decided to advance as soon as possible upon Lexington." Unquote. While staying in Barbourville, Smith decided to give his army a name. Before this point, they had no name. When addressing his correspondences, he would write, quote, "Headquarters, Department of East Tennessee." Unquote. On August 21st, 1862, Smith would give his divisions their first name when he wrote Confederate President Jefferson Davis, calling his men the Army of East Tennessee. Smith would once again change the name on August 26, 1862, in another letter to Jefferson Davis, where he called his divisions the Army of Kentucky. After that point, Smith's division would be called the Army of Kentucky until the end of the Civil War. Events taking place at the same time in the Civil War. It did not take long for General Don Carlos Buell to hear that General Smith was in Lexington, Kentucky, trying to drum up support for engagement. Buell ordered General William Bull Nelson to take his troops to Louisville, Kentucky, to defend it from the attack from the Confederate Army. In the meantime, General Robert E. Lee was making plans for his Maryland campaign in the Eastern Theater. It was hoped that the 2 Confederate offenses would strike a decisive and deadly blow to the Union forces. In next week's video, Bragg will reach Richmond, Kentucky, and the first actual battle of the Confederate Heartland Offensive will begin. Will this be a victory for Bragg? And if so, what effect would it have on the state of Kentucky, if any? Thank you. We at Kentucky Tennessee Living would like to thank you for watching our video series on the Appalachian Civil War battles. Don't forget to hit that like button, as the more likes we receive, the more likely YouTube is to suggest our videos to other viewers. Also, to receive notice when we upload a new video, be sure to subscribe and click the bell notification button. Be sure to double check that you are subscribed, as some of our viewers are finding that they are no longer subscribed to our channel. We thank you for continuing to support Kentucky Tennessee Living as we are discovering the mysteries in Appalachian history.